All right. Welcome, Leslie. Thank you so much for being here. I'm excited for our conversation today. And just to give everyone context about why we're here and who we are, we're both licensed clinicians and also coaches. And I think that we have a lot of crossover, being that I'm an alcohol-free lifestyle coach and you're a divorce coach. Actually, I think you could probably explain a little bit better because it's more involved than just divorce coaching. There's some legal aspects, emotional and stress management aspects. I think you even do some yoga. Yeah, I'd love maybe if you could just introduce yourself and your work a little bit for everyone listening.
Absolutely. Yeah, I actually think I'm going to be switching it to divorce support instead of coaching because it is support seems more encompassing of what I do. I really help people
Mm,
wherever they're at in the process, starting with if they're deciding if they should leave, and even helping couples with discernment, and
mm,
especially individuals with discernment. A lot of times we have to make that decision on our own, one person or the other. I work
mm,
with women and I can help them get through the process of deciding to go, cutting back the fear of leaving if they're in an unhappy or unsafe situation. And then
mm,
I also provide a lot of support through the process and post divorce. And that support can look like uh, preparation for meetings, anything from nervous system preparation, telling them what it might feel like to be there, preparing for those moments where they could feel they might not be able to express themselves or say what they want. So we're talking about nervous system preparation. Let's say they have a meeting that day, the morning of, what to do in a moment when you feel flooded or like you've gone into survival mode or been triggered, how to get through those moments. And then sometimes I offer just a decompression meeting. What happened? Can I help people sort things out? Because there's so much confusion in the divorce
mm,
process that
mm,
clients really want that. They want the pre-meeting and the post-meeting to help them feel
mhm,
empowered going into the meetings, but then afterward, they have questions that I may be able to answer or I might be able to guide them to the answer. And then I do a lot of work helping people figure out what kind of parenting plan that will work for them so that, again, they can walk into a meeting with their attorney or a mediation and know what they want and think through what's best for them, what's best for their kids. And then for people who've already gone through the process that I'm working with, we're talking a lot about dating, even self-pleasure, sex, because a lot of us go through divorce at a point when we've been in a marriage where there was very little intimacy, and now we're going back into the dating world, which has changed a lot and can be really
mm,
confusing and hard to navigate. So prep for
mm,
that, and in that in all of those stages, I'm also
mm,
offering some level of health coaching. What can we do to make sure you're taking care of yourself? And that could be anything from cold plunge to walking or running or taking up a hobby. What's self-care look like? So I guess I offer a really holistic kind of service for people going through divorce that encompasses mind, body, and the legal and financial concerns that a lot of people have.
mm. I love that. There's so much to touch on. Okay. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing all that because my hope for this conversation is, especially for my clients where they're trying to learn how to live alcohol free, my goal
Mhm.
is to help them reduce the urge to seek alcohol as a coping strategy. And that divorce is one of the most stressful things that a human can go through. It's up there with death, even and grief.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you covered such a range of what people could be going through. And I think that I can use myself as an example. I wish I found you like 17 years ago when I was
Mhm.
really going through this with my first divorce and having to navigate everything with a young child. My son was
Mhm.
a year old before we separated, and I was not prepared. I was not legally represented very well. It was someone that was a client of mine at the time, not a counseling client, but in personal training, was a
Yeah.
client of mine as a personal training client, and basically did it for very cheap. And it was just all the bare minimum stuff. There's so much that I've learned since then that I would do differently.
Mm.
So maybe that's the first thing that jumps out to me is just how stressful the process can be. When you're going through divorce,
Hmm.
it's very common for people to turn to alcohol, or maybe it's not even alcohol. Maybe someone listening to this is struggling with another maladaptive strategy.
Yeah.
But I guess how would a person, or how do you help your clients know when their nervous system is not regulated, or when they're maybe in a really, I think I was in a state of fear, like constant
Yeah.
state of fear
Yes.
for a long period of time. Like, how do you help your clients recognize that they are in that state?
Yeah, I think you just made a bunch of really great points. And
Mm.
I want to say, in regards to alcohol, we think of it as a kind of numbing agent, but in reality, it can cause our nervous system to be activated even more extreme. And it can also take us out and remove our ability to respond. And so I do work with my clients and talk to my clients a lot about limiting any of the numbing agents that they might use, whether it's sex, alcohol, marijuana, because you want to show up and be in control of your actions and your words. And those things, although they might feel like they're numbing the pain, they can amplify what's going on in your nervous system, in my opinion. So, in regards to your question about how to teach them to recognize kind of what's going on in the nervous system, I feel like most of us don't know. I certainly
Mhm.
lived in survival mode for many years, if not most of my adult life, from
Mhm.
early trauma very early on. And so the first step is really helping people start to scan their body and feel for something, feel for changes. And again, most people aren't even aware. I remember having chest pain in a therapy session during my divorce, and I had probably had a tight chest for a week since the last meeting I was in with my ex-husband. And I realized, she said, "Where do you feel this in your body?" We were going to do an EMDR. And it was the first time I thought, oh, God, my chest is really tight. So
Mhm.
for my clients, many of them are coming to me without that knowledge. They aren't embodied. They don't understand that those feelings are their nervous system reacting to fear. So it's just talking about and allowing them to go back to a moment in time. What did you feel in your body? And if they come into the meeting with me, that's a great opportunity for us to identify what's going on. I typically ask if they'll do body scan meditations, if they're willing to do meditation. Not everyone is, because that's a great way to start recognizing what's going on and really feel yourself light up. So
Mhm.
that's where I try to start. Not everyone wants to do a body scan. Not everybody thinks they're capable of doing meditation, even though I disagree. But they will do them, or even if they will just do a grounding exercise in therapy with me or in the coaching session with me. A lot of times, just getting grounded, breathing, hand on your chest, allows you to calm everything down. And then once we start talking about the fear and talking about, then the sensations start coming back. So if
Mhm.
I can get them to feel those sensations during the session, then I can help them become aware of when it's going to happen at other times.
Yeah, and as I'm listening to you talk about this, I'm just reminded of just how complex and complicated it is. We're talking about parts that get activated.
Mm.
I always say if it's hysterical, it's historical.
Yep.
So if there's a big reaction on the surface, it typically has roots to it. And someone might be saying, there's no way that I could be calm. Like you said, like I can't meditate right now.
Right.
But I think it's important to think about what's on the line if you don't do
Mm.
that. And that sounds a little bit scary. What we're talking about is the ability to problem solve and think clearly. And because that's what we really need
Yeah.
in a situation where you are going through a divorce, there's so many decisions that need to be made
Hmm.
and so much that will impact however old your kids are until they're 18, years of your life.
Yep.
That if these boundaries are not firm now,
Right. They
there's
never will
just
be.
more struggle later.
Yeah.
So this is really about protecting yourself for the long term. And that's
Absolutely.
something that if I could tell my younger self is, yeah, to do the work so that you can protect yourself
Yeah. And
for
sometimes
the many years.
the recognition that you're lit up, your nervous system is active and it's in fight or flight can mean the difference. Like I will teach people, okay, we want you to make a signal with your attorney. If you're lit up and you cannot calm yourself down, then have a signal with your attorney that they're going to speak for you. But don't agree to anything in those moments because I
Hmm.
really do a lot of education. I do education around parts, but I also do a lot about what's going on in your prefrontal cortex in a moment when you're
Hmm.
lit up. So once you can recognize you are lit up in your body and that things aren't right, then you can be aware enough to say, I'm not capable of making a decision in this moment. And hopefully you've
Hmm.
advocated for yourself well enough with your attorney that they know what you want and they know how to respond
Hmm.
for you. I did a collaborative divorce, and there were days when I walked in lit up. I hadn't had this work myself yet. So again, but I made those agreements with her in advance. And I would say, if I look at you and I do whatever our signal was, I want you to respond. I trust you. She wasn't going to be lit up. She was going to be solid during those meetings and always be. So teaching people that, like, there are going to be moments where you should not talk or you should not respond if you can't calm. Doesn't mean you won't be able to bring yourself back, but a
Hmm.
lot of decisions are being made. That's all different if you're on a witness stand, if you're going through this and you're going through court, then it's a totally different approach. Then it's okay, how can you calm yourself and get through? Just being on the stand is stressful enough to light you up, but
Hmm.
we'll do in advance and what do we need to prepare? And sometimes I go through questions with people just so they've been asked before the day of. What do you think that they might ask you? What kind of conversations are going to come up? So it's a lot of preparation for someone who's going through the
Hmm.
process because you're right.
Hmm.
You don't want boundaries to be left out. You don't boundaries to be put in place. It's all very important. You need everything in that agreement or the court order that you can
Hmm.
possibly get in there to make life after the fact.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would recommend even like taking just journaling for a few days. This would just be my advice to anyone that's going through it. I don't even know if you would recommend this,
Yeah.
but write down every source of contention that you have
Hmm.
and then talk with your lawyer about how you can protect yourself.
Yes.
I think that's one way to
It's a good way.
identify.
And with those, what feeling or what emotion does that bring up, or what belief does that bring up? Are the parts that are going to come up? I'm talking about parts work, like IFS now. I have parts coaching with my divorced clients because our parts are going to come up. And the ones that we don't
Mm.
want in the room are going to try to take over
Right.
when fear
Yeah.
really kicks in. So
Yeah.
who's coming? Who's going to be there? What are the points of contention? What is surface? What do they need to hear? Why are they there? Once you know what
Hmm.
comes up, then you can offer it compassion and say, okay, I'm in control. We're okay. We're okay. I know why you're here.
Hmm.
Um, and that's really helpful for people if they do parts work or they're willing. It's really helpful to, in preparation, think about who's going to be there. And let's say someone doesn't do parts work. What are the beliefs that you have about yourself that this person in this situation bring out? And what's real, what's true? So if your belief is, I'm a failure because this marriage didn't work or it's my fault, what's true? Probably, I did everything I could do, and this is what's best for my family now. So in the journaling process, I would say writing down all the beliefs that you might have about yourself that are negative regarding the divorce, and then counter them. And that may be something almost like a mantra that you read, the counter, the positive beliefs. And then I
Mm-hmm.
always use I am safe. I think putting my hand on my chest and saying I am safe and just system like the lion is not chasing me. Like I am in
Right.
fact safe.
Literally.
Yes. And breathing. Breathing is the number one way we tell our body that we're alive and we're safe and we're okay. So deep
Mm.
breaths. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting that our bodies really can't distinguish between being chased by a lion or like an emotional threat, right? As soon as
Hmm.
those hormones kick in for a fight, yeah, we don't use the higher levels of our brain. Brene Brown calls it being offline, and
Yep.
I really like that. That's a good verb. Like even just awareness can be helpful. Like I'm offline or just not thinking clearly, not problem solving as well as I could be. I think it's important to know those things. And like you
Hmm.
said, I also agree with parts work. It's such a rich theory, but in simple terms, I just because it's funny, I like to say, don't let the toddler drive the bus
Uh-huh. Yep.
because they're typically young parts of us
Yeah.
that have had to really adapt to help us survive. And so there's no bad parts, right?
Hmm.
We would just want to try to understand where they're coming from and let them know that they're seen, heard, and valued. Just everyone wants in the external life. Our internal parts want that as well.
Yep.
And so I think that's really wise to do an inventory of who's in the room and who has something to say
Yep.
without judgment. That can be calming in and of itself.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So,
And
yeah.
if you, not all listeners will be familiar with parts work, but if you know that you have a firefighter is going to try to convince you to numb the pain, the fear, the grief, whatever. And so, in regards
Mm-hmm.
to your work, if you know you have a firefighter and you know that is what they're going to present to you and say, have like
Mm-hmm.
to calm you down,
Right.
knowing how to have an internal like dialogue and conversation with the firefighter and say, I don't need that. I'm okay.
Mm-hmm.
Or there's
Right.
something else. I'm going to go for a walk. Or
Mm-hmm.
alternative is because I think we have grown up in a society and a culture where numbing with alcohol is seen as normal. Like when people are most stressed out, what do your friends say? Let's go have a drink.
Exactly.
But I can tell you there were multiple times when I had a drink and I didn't feel better. Like I did not. I have an example of that just from last week, actually, with my boyfriend, where we have a really great relationship where we talk a lot about our nervous system. And because of past trauma I have, something came up in a conversation and he said something and my body, I flooded and I couldn't help it. Like it wasn't in my control. It was PTSD and a trigger. And he didn't do
Mm-hmm.
anything wrong. He just brought up something that triggered.
Mm-hmm.
And I had maybe a half of a glass of wine. And normally I would be able to just, we'd keep talking. I could breathe, not even know that I had gone that way. I could get it back under control. I couldn't. And I think it
Mm-hmm.
was really the wine suppressed my ability to calm my own nervous system and tell
Yeah.
myself. So it took a lot longer
Mm-hmm.
because we have a really great dialogue around that. He said, are you okay? Something's off. No, like when you said this, it just, you didn't do it, but it triggered something. I just need a minute. Very few people have other people in their life who have the capacity or the understanding to do that for you. So I really did take note of, wow, we don't drink a lot. So I was like, wow,
Mm-hmm.
half of a glass of wine just could have led to this huge disagreement. I could have become reactive because I really wasn't in control of my nervous system at that moment.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah,
think
that's
that
exactly
happens a
right.
lot. That's what happens when
Yeah.
people say and do things that they normally wouldn't because they don't
Mm-hmm.
have control.
Yeah, it's so disruptive to every system in our body. So I think, yeah, like what you said, like you just don't have control over your nervous system, I think is true. Alcohol does hijack that process. And even if there wasn't that to intervene, like the conversation with your boyfriend to intervene in that moment, alcohol is really, you're just kicking the can down the road. I like to think there's nothing being solved. You're just
No.
prolonging your suffering,
Yes.
um,
Yes.
prolonging your ability to adjust and adapt, which is the definition of stress. Like
Right.
difficult to adjust and adapt to a circumstance.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a good example.
About window of tolerance. This is another big there, but we want to teach people to keep themselves like in their window to recognize when they're creeping up, like to the top, creeping down.
Yeah.
So I think people have the belief that alcohol will keep you in your window of tolerance because it suppresses
Mm.
things. But in reality, that's not what happened at all.
Yeah, it makes us less likely to respond and more
Mhm.
likely to react. But that reminds me of the emotion exploration scale I use quite a bit. And that could be
Mhm.
just a helpful way for people to think about. I have also talked about it in terms of a thermometer, the window of
Mhm.
tolerance. If you know what your baseline is, and then if you know like a 3, you're starting to get elevated, and a 10 is like you're hyper aroused and over the top.
Yep.
We want to make sure that we prevent ourselves from moving or progressing along the scale. And I think window of tolerance, that's another way to explain it
Yep.
too, is you want to keep it as wide as possible.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that the window of tolerance, the thermometer, I love that. Sometimes I'm in the red zone. I'll say red zone, green,
Mm.
yellow zone. And there are a lot of conversations people who are going through the divorce or in the divorce process have to have where they should really think of whether they're green light, yellow with
Mm.
caution, or red light no. And that
Hmm.
can even
Right.
include having conversations with your children about the other parent. There are definitely times where I knew I wasn't going to be able to have a mature conversation that I wanted to have with my kids during the process because my nervous system was lit up. So you have to be very careful if you're talking to your soon to be ex partner, your kids, their family members, friends that are friends with both people. There's so many instances you really need to take your temperature and figure it. And yeah, I think back to your audience, it's such a good time to learn how to take care of yourself and find other ways to be
Hmm.
calm other than alcohol. Like it's not the time to drink to feel better or like negative coping strategy that we have. So I do a lot of teaching people about the benefits of exercise and yoga and just like natural ways to take care of ourselves and give ourselves even dopamine hits. We talk about pleasure and self pleasure and the benefits of that, oxytocin release. And that's a really healthy way to give yourself even like a little dopamine hit that's
Mm.
natural. So
Mm.
where it's, I guess, taboo for some people to talk about, but it serves people going through this process really well. It's also tied into, I think, women worry about not having intimacy after the divorce. Like, how am I going to find someone? Where's that kind
Hmm.
of come from? So if you can teach yourself to be intimate with yourself, then there is a lot less to worry about. And you may actually
Mm.
not rush into relationships or situationships or hookups. Not that I'm judgmental about using those strategies, especially in the dating world
Yeah.
now. But
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious because I don't know if I could have even been open to that. It was such a stressful time to even be thinking about love or joy.
Yeah.
Seems so far removed. But it seems also like it would be really important. One, the firefighter that you talked about in
Mhm.
IFS,
Yeah.
getting that part to know that it doesn't need to be activated is like, I don't even know if I could. There's points where like I wouldn't have figured that out on my own, and that's why a coach or a professional could be really beneficial, and it
Yeah.
may even need therapy. I think we're both clinicians and both coaches, so just to explain the medical necessity with therapy, but coaching, we don't need to have a diagnosis or symptoms or complaints to treat. So
Right.
we have a lot more freedom to work with clients, but we always have blind spots, and that's what I think a coach or a therapist can do really well, is to really point those things out because you might not recognize it. So that
Hmm.
would probably be my first advice, is if you don't know or if you're not aware of these sorts of things, it's maybe to talk to someone to see. You may not
Absolutely.
even realize you're feeling as bad or as good as you are.
Yeah, absolutely. I
Yeah.
think the thing that took me by surprise the most, because I was the person who decided to get the divorce, was
Mm-hmm.
the grief. And
Mm-hmm.
I remember being blindsided by the grief because I thought, I wanted this. Like, what is happening to me? And luckily, I did have a really great therapist at the time who said, it's okay for you to grieve. And having her, she had to point it out. I was like, I don't know what's wrong with me. Because we're
Yeah.
selling our house, and I was like, I don't
Mm-hmm.
want to live there anymore, but I feel so sad that we're selling it and that I'll never be back here.
Yeah.
So many
Right.
years, 15 years of memories were made here. It just was
Mm-hmm.
devastating. So yeah, like getting, I think anyone going through or even considering divorce should have either a therapist or a coach or both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I totally agree.
Yeah.
For sure. Yes, my second marriage also I initiated, and I was working with a therapist myself as well for pretty 5 years throughout the process. So I'm really grateful,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
because we don't always see. I think this is where I think humans are incredible. We're amazing at figuring out how to survive and function,
Hmm.
that so much of it is unconscious, right? Like
Yes.
we don't know that we have this firefighter part that just comes in. And my therapist would describe it as just comes in like a firefighter and you just basically douses the whole house but doesn't care about salvaging anything. It's just
Exactly.
like
I love
trying
that.
to put you out of pain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whatever
That
it
always resonated
takes.
with me.
Yep.
Hmm.
Whatever it
Yes.
takes. Yep.
Hmm. And
Yeah.
it's so fast.
It's so fast. It's so
Mm.
don't see it coming. And for someone, yeah, I just think about how many of us do or have in the, I didn't do this a lot. I don't feel great when I drink a lot of alcohol, but I have many friends, and I feel like many of them have a drink every day, like a glass of wine. It's to calm their nerves, right? That, which
Calm
is
their
so
nerves, right?
funny because no, that's not
Yeah.
what it's actually, that's not exactly what's
Hmm.
happening.
Right.
But their firefighter parts at the end of every day because they're exhausted. There's so much on F
Mm.
plate that people think that's going to help them sleep better or just help them deal with the stress from the day. And that's,
Mm.
I personally can't sleep very well after. So, to the
Mm.
window of tolerance, like nothing is worse than being in a stressful situation, which you pretty much are the whole time you're in the divorce process. Now
Mhm.
you've drank, so your sleep is really disrupted and not great. And you may not even feel very good.
Mm.
So counterproductive. But again, our culture teaches us that it's what we're supposed to do when times get rough. That's how we feel better.
Mhm. Yeah, it's in all the movies and shows
Everything.
and yeah, we're very conditioned to reach for alcohol. But I also want to point out, I don't want to forget that because I tend to experience more of a freeze response.
Hmm.
So the hypoarousal, which is very like flat and numb and despairing,
Yes.
is also a sign that your nervous system is dysregulated.
Yep.
So I just want to also point that out for anyone, that could be experiencing that.
Yeah. I actually have
Um,
that as well. It varies. Our responses
mhm,
typically vary, go into freeze. And
mhm,
what I tell clients and what I do for myself in that instance is I let myself be in a quiet place and let that run its course. It won't I won't, it doesn't always last long. It's again recognizing it, having awareness, and letting yourself feel what you need to feel. And then sometimes I set a timer. There are certain life that trigger me. And I already know, like, I know it happens. And I have a place I go in my house and I sit in a meditative state, but I'll set a timer. When the timer goes off, I'm like, okay, I'm okay now. Not everyone's able to
Hmm.
do that. I've worked a lot with meditation and my nervous system, and my mindfulness practice is pretty routine now. But
Hmm.
those are things you could do. You can have an awareness
Hmm.
and say, I'm in freeze, and say, okay, I'm going to let myself stay here for a little bit. And then I'm going to get.
Yeah.
Do you feel like people who have a tendency to lean towards alcohol will do so in freeze?
As you were just talking, I was trying to distinguish between freeze and grief.
Hmm.
And I think because I think of grief as like the opposite side of coin of as love. Like
Hmm.
to the extent that we can grieve is to the extent that we loved. So
Mm.
grief to me is it's almost a beautiful, messy, it's just bittersweet,
Yeah.
right? But I think of my mom when I think of grief because I lost my mom in
Hmm.
2016. And that's different than despairing for me. Despairing it
Yeah.
feels like more stuck, more
Hmm.
numb,
Yep.
more frozen. But it could, maybe it was because of the drinking. The alcohol I was consuming was pretty much every night for my mom passed in 2016. I didn't really notice a problem with alcohol until my second marriage, and it just started to become an everyday habit.
Hmm.
So my nervous system was probably really dysregulated on top of the grief that I was experiencing,
Yeah.
on top of the conflict that wasn't being resolved in my blended family. And so, yeah, I think I just plummeted into despair.
Yeah.
And so it's hard to say what was the real driver. But
Right.
I think now that I've been sober, it's like my brain is actually functioning better.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It almost sounds
So,
like your grief was so overwhelming for you that you leaned
mhm.
on the alcohol to get through, and you had periods of freeze where you were just numb. Maybe some of that was from the dynamics in the marriage and the blended family that you had. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's complicated as a predisposition too, like my an ACOA, adult child of an alcoholic. So
Mhm. Oh,
alcohol
wow.
has always been in my family. Yeah, it's like good times and bad times,
Yep.
celebrations, barbecues, parties. It's always been a part of my family and our life.
Mm.
And so I think that set the stage
Mhm.
for it.
Yep.
But yeah, losing my mom was, when I look back on it, I was in no position to even make a decision about getting married a year after that because I
Yeah.
just wasn't, I wasn't on, I was offline.
Yeah, you were
And so
offline.
I was like not processing information. I was not making sound decisions. Maybe just a lot of parts were driving the bus. A lot of
Yeah.
toddlers were
Yeah.
taking the wheel. And that got me into trouble. And so I think, as I'm saying this out loud, it's so complex. It's so
Mm.
complicated. It's not like one thing.
No.
It's layer. I always think of a Rubik's Cube. It's right when you shift one thing into place, a bunch of other colors, they change. And I think
Yeah.
when it comes to alcohol or substances or maladaptive coping or whatever your stressor is,
Yeah.
it's not just that one thing. It has multiple layers to it. And the only way to untangle that is to stay as clear headed and
Mm.
regulated as possible.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is so complex, and I always think about when I think about my parts, I have a campfire, and there are usually 10 parts at
Hmm.
least sitting around, and they're kind of
Yeah.
battling with each other. There are a lot
Hmm.
of I have a lot of managers. Their age ranges are all over the place. Before I knew parts work, or I knew anything, I went to a women's retreat and I knew nothing. All I knew was I was in a fog. I was like I had no idea what had happened to me or why I felt so miserable. And by the end of the retreat, I think it was 3 or 4 days, the woman who was running the retreat and doing all of the breakthrough work was like, your 8-year-old has been driving the bus for most of your life. And I was like, yep,
Me too.
that's
Yeah.
true.
It's
The age is anytime something's going on, it has to do with that age, around that age. But it does help to know kind of what our deepest, like our biggest wounds are. I have a huge abandonment
mm-hmm.
wound from my dad. And
Mm-hmm.
so
Yeah.
for me, any sense that my primary partner, my partner, is going to leave me or anything like that is going to trigger just this horrible PTSD and light me up,
Mm-hmm.
even when things feel really safe and secure. But I know
Right.
that. I know it. So I think that's the beauty of therapy and working with coaches who are trauma informed and
Mm-hmm.
help you identify what you're trying, what are the things. And once you have awareness of a tendency, then you have a better shot at keeping control of it and
Mm-hmm.
understanding yourself and why you do the things you do, including
Right.
drinking or whatever other numbing tendency that you have. Because it's not always alcohol. There
Mm-hmm.
are plenty of things out there that we can
Oh,
use.
yeah.
And,
Mm.
I
To
have
escape.
to
Yeah.
escape. Yeah, I have a client
Mm-hmm.
who, since her divorce, she has serial dated, not like nonstop. And when she came to me, she was like, I don't know why none of these are working out. We've done a lot of work to sort out why none of them were working out. And part of it was just because the act of meeting new people and going on new dates and getting validation was a numbing and a coping strategy.
Yeah. And maladaptive is it works in the moment, but not long term.
Right,
So it's
right.
like that for that date may be working in that moment, but it doesn't work long term.
No.
I'm a big proponent of even the maladaptive strategies. Obviously, we want to learn healthier ways, but I just think it's incredible that we figure out how to move forward. And
Yeah.
the idea is to just refine the
Yeah,
strategies, make them more
absolutely.
sustainable over time.
Yep. The
Yeah.
more we understand ourselves, the more we can find better ways to it. And I think back to people going through a divorce or even considering it, like there is
Mm.
so much fear. And so when we understand ourselves better, then we know how to face the fear and we know what we're going to do in certain situations so we can prepare for them. It's really powerful to just understand ourselves better. Um,
Yeah, and it feels what you were saying about the abandonment wound. There's so many people out there that could be listening with different experiences, whether you wanted the divorce, not wanted the divorce, but divorce can bring up anything and everything that has
mhm.
been laid dormant or maybe is more active. And so I want to acknowledge the person out there that is maybe going through a divorce and is exposing a very tender abandonment wound that alcohol or any maladaptive strategy might be the best that you can do. And
Mhm.
I've heard Gabor Mate say, whatever you do it consciously.
I love
And
that.
I'll be honest, that actually allowed me to continue drinking a little
Yeah.
bit. So I don't want to necessarily encourage it. And I want
Yeah.
everyone to be safe first and
Right.
foremost. I was never reckless with my drinking. I was more of a closet drinker and
Mhm.
drank by myself
Yep.
alone indoors. But I guess I just say that for me, it was like, okay, it's tequila or it's antidepressants
Yeah.
because it was so painful.
Mm.
And so I just want to acknowledge that for people out there that do the best that you can
Yeah.
and do it as safely as possible. And when you're ready to seek the help, that the help is there, whether
Absolutely.
it's
Absolutely.
divorce coaching or alcohol-free lifestyle coaching.
Yeah. Yeah. That we're all doing the best we can. And if a person is listening and they've reached a point where they feel completely lost and like they can't get control of their life, then
Mm-hmm.
it's time to get help and it's okay to have help. And that help
Absolutely.
doesn't mean you have to give up your red wine or whatever it is that you need. It just means the help's going to help assist you in understanding yourself better, making clearer
Mm-hmm.
choices, and just having an awareness that you don't have right now,
Mm-hmm.
which is so powerful.
Yeah. So in summary, since we do have to wrap up,
Yeah,
unfortunately, this was such a great conversation. I'm sure we could take it in so many different ways. And if
yeah.
anyone would like us to continue this conversation with maybe a question, please let us know. But just to summarize, I think the ultimate goal is for our bodies to function and our minds to function at their optimal best. And optimal best is boundaried, it's without substance, it's getting good sleep, it's getting good nutrition, good exercise, problem solving, making decisions. Our bodies are designed to function really well, but we do a lot of things that kind of get in the way of that. Staying in our window of tolerance, like you mentioned, leading with self and not from parts that
Mm,
want to drive the bus. And wherever you are is where you're supposed to be, but there is so much better. We can always function better. So if you need any support with divorce or alcohol-free lifestyle, yeah, that's what we're here for. But any closing thoughts as we wrap up?
no, thank you so much for having me. This was great. I feel like we could keep
Mm-hmm.
talking about many different things and go different directions, but this was wonderful. And I just have a really big appreciation for what you're doing and uh, all the
Thanks.
bravery and just help for people that I know
Thank you.
appreciate you.
Yeah, and I really appreciate what you're doing. Honestly, it is one of the scariest and hardest things that I've had to go through, and having some support would be really amazing for anyone out there.
Mm,
So thank you for that.
thank you.
All right, I'll see you soon.